It is not uncommon to find yourself agreeing with an enemy over the mutual hatred of another enemy, of both of you. Yet it is a very dangerous place to be, because if the only thing you have in common with the first enemy is your common hatred for the second enemy, and you align yourself with them, you have to remember, as soon as you get rid of that mutual enemy, the first enemy remains your enemy. And now he's gonna come after you. And it really applies to almost every aspect of life. Whether it is the civil rights movement with the gay movement against the federation, against the system for civil rights, right? Blacks and civil rights, or whether it is the Jews and Martin Luther King against the Catholic Church, the Reformation, or whether it is me and my grandpa against the Orthodox Hasidic Jews and Chabad, because, two different reasons. I am a saint, meaning holy one, observant of Torah. Grandpa is a anti-God, anti-Torah, anti-Chabad, and we both share a common hatred for Chabad and the Hasidic Jews and the rest of those Pharisees and hypocrites. But our hatred comes from completely different angles and completely different reasons. See, Grandpa hates them because he's 87 years old and he's been around. He knows them. He's seen their hypocrisy. He had so many encounters with them over the years, walked with them, saw them, listened to them, asked them questions. And he just came to the conclusion, they are all devils, liars, cheaters. And his hatred for them shares his hatred with God and the Torah, because he is unable to separate and distinguish between the two. Whereas my hatred for them is based on the fact that they, much like Grandpa has saw and experienced, are hypocrites. They are liars, deceivers, and really my main issue with them is that they profane the name of my God, of Adonai Elohim. They bring reproach because I, unlike them, am zealous for Yod Hei Vav Hei, the God of Israel. And I revere his name. I observe his mitzvot, not the traditions of men that Chabad people do. So whereas me and Grandpa share this hatred for those people who practice this kind of man-made religion, we have completely different reasons. And it would be a very dangerous alliance to make if we were ever to come against them, which is why this is not something that is going to happen. Because for me, as a man of God, I know what Grandpa's problem is. He's a secularist. He's unable, like I said, to distinguish. He thinks there is no God. He doesn't believe in God because all he knows, actually that's not true. All he wants to know, because he knows more, but he denies it, he doesn't want to know. All he wants to think and to believe is that whatever this man-made religion is, that is all there is. He believes, he wants to believe that Adonai is invention of man. And because he wants to believe Adonai is invention of man, and he sees the hypocrisy of all of those Hasidic Jews, he denounces the entire Torah and Adonai altogether. He labels them as one. Despite the fact that he knows me, his grandson, that I am an observant of Torah, I don't walk around in Hasidic suit, I don't do all of these religious rituals, he knows it, but like I said, he's denying it, he doesn't want to, address the issue here. And that is how people are really in life. You'll notice that if you have your eyes open and you go about and experience and get exposed to more people. Most people are biased. They know something's wrong with their worldview, but we do not want to change it. The civil rights movement, they knew that the gay people are... Because the civil rights movement, they were blacks, and blacks come from church, they come from faith. They know that homosexuality is an abomination. It's in the scripture. The Lord, the Creator, said a man must not lie down with a man as with a woman. It is an abomination. He created nature, male and female. That is what nature does. The Lord despises and abhors unnatural relations. He created nature, not un-nature. And yet, the civil rights aligned themselves with all those gay people, and to this day, they have problems because of it. They're all messed up now, and Stephen can tell you about it a lot more. He is African American. He knows his history. And the Jews and Martin Luther King, the father, same thing. After they broke off from the Catholic Church, he turned against the Jews. It came back to bite them in the butt. Because you should never align with people only over that common enemy while they are still your enemy. But if you do, at least be ready for the battle after the war. Because, like I said, the enemy will turn on you eventually. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when, so you better be prepared to fight two battles. Grandpa is never gonna get it. He's too old and stubborn. He's stuck in his own ways, and he is simply not interested. He does not care, he thinks he knows, and that's the end of it. Doesn't matter how much he saw. Even if one rises from the dead, still he would not believe. He's that guy. Does not care. He is determined that there is no God, that the Hasidic Jews invented God, and they are hypocrites, and they are deceivers, they are liars, they have a man-made religion, and that's the end of it. He sees how foolish they are. He always used to make fun of them. With their separation of meat and dairy, and what happens if you cut a tomato? Is that a meat knife or a dairy knife? And what if then you make toast? There are so many stories I can tell you, but it's really irrelevant. We all know they're hypocrites. All they do is religion. Tefillin, kippas, so what? What does that mean? Any devil can put a kippah on his head, and they do. And that is what Grandpa experienced. So he says, well, none of you live according to this book, so obviously there is no God. That's the conclusion he came to. And even though he saw me, it doesn't matter. He's already made up his mind. So point being, do not align yourself with an enemy to get rid of a common enemy. The only one you should align yourself with is the Lord. Let Him fight your battles. Let Him be the one to give you victory. By the way, I gave you a few examples, but you read the history in the scriptures, the book of Kings. Israel has done this mistake many times, making alliances with Egypt, with Assyria. It always comes back to bite them in the butt. Now they make alliances with the US. What's the difference? Do you think the US really is pro-Israel? No, it's all interest. It's all propaganda. It's all about money and position and power in the Middle East. It's strategy. Sure, a few people in the US care for Israel. That's true, yes. There are a few. But as a nation, you saw those pro-Palestinian flags being waved all over the place. It's only a matter of one more generation before they completely turn against Israel, and we know it's going to happen because Scripture says so. The book of Revelation, the whore of Babylon. We know it's going to fall. So, history repeats itself. Every nation that ever aligned itself with Israel eventually turned against Israel, because the Lord told us not to trust in the chariots of Egypt, not to trust in the horses of Assyria, but to trust in Him, to do what He says. It's not complicated. Do not align yourself with a certain sect of Judaism, with a certain denomination of Christianity, or even with any religion. The Lord never gave you religion. He never told you to be a Christian or a Jew or a Messianic. What is all this nonsense? Where do you get that from? Stop following the traditions of men. Read the scripture. Read the book of Bereshit. It says everything. The first book. Look at Abraham. Abraham was just a servant. Specifically read chapters 17 and 18 of Bereshit. Chapter 17, he talks about just be blameless and walk in my presence. Chapter 18, verse 18-19, after he goes to judge Sodom, he says to Abraham, I've made myself known to Abraham so that he will command his descendants to walk in my ways. Not to go to synagogue or church, just be holy and righteous, do what is just and right. That's all the Lord requires of us. Abraham was not a Christian, he was not Jewish. Why are you? Can't you just serve the Lord? And even Abraham, by the way, is not the example here. He too came out of paganism. He wasn't perfect. He built altars all over the place. You read it because, well, that's what he did. He didn't say that the Lord told him to do that. Keep that in mind. Don't go and mimicking everything he did. He was still a flawed human being. But nevertheless, his heart was with the Lord. The Lord said in Isaiah 66, the earth is my footstool, heaven is my throne. What kind of house would you build for me? He does not require a temple, definitely not a church. He wants to dwell in you. He made you from the dust of the earth, breathed his spirit in you. That's where he wants to be, in your heart. Doesn't want you to go to a building. Enough of that godlessness. Don't you get it? Just align yourself with the Lord, and that's it.